her client just sold a optometry business for about $1.2 million. Everyone's very happy about it, obviously. But then when she looked at the financial records of this new client, she realized that there's a Division 7A of about $900,000. And the tax on Division 7A is about 70% if you add up.
70?
70.
Wow.
Yeah, so plus penalties and interest. That would have wiped out all the proceeds from the sale of the business. That
Wow.
Yeah, the client's been working really hard towards for years and years.
Welcome, Dan, to Digital Dividends, and everyone listening. My guest today has a career path that not many tax lawyers can claim. Before ever setting foot in a law firm, you spent years inside the Australian Tax Office, sitting on the side of the table that most business owners are trying not to end up across from. But then you moved into Big Four advisory and then into legal practice, and now a partner at SLF Lawyers here in Brisbane. SLF having offices across, Melbourne, Sydney, Gold Coast, and Brizzy. And you're advising accountants and other lawyers and business owners on some of the hardest tax and commercial problems in the country. You've got 19 years across the regulator, the advisory world, and now the law. You've got a Masters of Taxation from UNSW, and you're the kind of tax lawyer that I think people are going to want on their side when things get complicated. Okay. But right now, the ATO is chasing $50 billion in small business debt. We've got a federal budget that has dropped a whole bunch of big question marks, and we'll touch on some of those today. But most business owners, I think it's a complicated world we live in. It's great to know that there's folks like you out there to run to when things get confusing. So welcome to Digital Dividends, Dan.
Thanks so much for having me. This is very exciting.
I do want to start with, have you done your degree and then gone to the ATO? So starting in the ATO is a really unusual first step. Tell us how that sort of came about for you.
Yeah, that's a good question. I started an ATO when I was still studying, so it was my fourth year. My career mentor was a tax professor, so she pushed me towards the ATO, and I was in a lot of different areas. So I was in audit as well as in the legal side. I was also in the risk analysis team. So I had a very broad and very sort of encompassing experience with the ATO.
Yeah, and is that risk for the ATO? Or when looking at the application of the ATO on risk on the community or the business community or the individuals out there that the ATO is managing?
I had an idea to assess on how trust could be, or the risks involved with trusts and how that can be picked up.
This is family trust, unit trust, distressing trust.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you were in the fourth year of your course at uni, but you had this moment there where you were encouraged to jump into the ATO. Tell us a bit about that and how that came about.
Yeah, so I initially wanted to become a criminal lawyer. I spent 2 years in a criminal law firm working as a law clerk to become a criminal lawyer. I had a bit of a crisis. I really didn't want to be a criminal lawyer because one of the cases I was helping was a pedophile.
You're defending that person?
Yeah. So
right.
I went to the QT career team, and they put me with my tax professor, and she talked about how tax law is actually very similar to criminal law in that we have that investigation side of it. She explained what it's like to be a tax lawyer. And through that, I applied for the ATO and thought I'll try it out. I really enjoyed my experience with the ATO.
That's wonderful. I love that values-led decision making, because even now I see some of the other things you do where you're helping others to be better lawyers, and I know you manage groups that get together and talk about that. You're clearly a very empathetic, mindful, and sort of bring others along. Maybe share with us a little bit about that group you coordinate and how that sort of also extends that sort of meaningful application of law. Talk us through some of that.
Yeah, so I run a accounting discussion group, and we meet once a month. Besides the fact that I really enjoy talking about tax law with these accountants, I feel sympathetic with them. They're always getting harder and harder, and I think as a practitioner, it's very lonely to be running a business on your own. A lot of these accountants operate maybe 2 or 3 employees and often maybe 1 or 2 partners. So it's a very lonely job. They often work very long hours and they deal with very complicated matters.
So it's a dating group. Is that what I'm hearing?
It's a support group, but it's nice. The group has grown. So we started with 20 that came about 3 months ago, and now it's grown to about 30. Yeah. So I think we're striking a need in the industry, and as things get more complicated and things evolving and changing so quickly, I think the people side of it becomes more important. And we all need to be part of something. We all need to be part of a group. And I think that's what's resonating with the accountants that come to my discussion group.
I love that. I love keeping the human aspect in there. And in particular, what I know about tax law, my father-in-law is a career tax accountant. It's a really fast-moving body of material, isn't it? It has really substantial changes very frequently that aren't like my understanding of common law and the application of that, certainly law of torts is, yes, cases come through, but they're often at the edges or tangential or out on the fringe for a particular scenario. But when the tax law changes, that kind of sweeps up a whole bunch of people at a time. And if I think of as a citizen, most of us don't really monitor the law or changes in the law. And the way we learn the law has changed is by coming foul of it.
Yep.
And so I think tax law is one of those interesting ones. How do you deal with that? Does this group help with that, or are there other ways you see people effectively keeping in touch with? I'm sure they talk to their accountant and they learn about it that way, but how do we start to sort of get in front of that or really monitor for that?
Yeah. So you're exactly right. I deal with accountants on a daily basis because that's where most of my work comes from, and I have to keep up to date with the change in tax law. I subscribe to a system that updates me with changes in the case law, and there's probably about 2 or 3 major cases every fortnight.
Right.
So I was just getting to the point where I had to read all these cases on the weekend. Might as well make the most of it. So I started writing a newsletter about it. So it's just utilizing, all that time I spent just get myself up to date. Yeah. And then I thought, well, what else can I do? I might as well just do presentations about it. So I'm already have to teach myself how to write about it in a newsletter. I might as well once a month also do a discussion group. So that's how it came about.
Fantastic.
So it's the Brisbane Northside Accounting Discussion Group. We meet once a month at the Chermside Library, and we have pizza and drinks as well. We try to invite experts in the field, so I'm not always presenting. Last month we had a tax barrister present for us, and so the following month we'll be inviting someone who specialises in mergers and acquisitions, an AI expert, AML, CTF expert. So everything that we think that would be relevant for accountants and tax practitioners, we try to invite those experts to present for us every month.
That's awesome. We'll pop a link in the show notes so that people can find that, certainly those who are in the area. Do you broadcast that or capture that or share that further, or is it more people who aren't local to Chermside or can't get there? Is it a matter of tapping into the newsletter and getting those updates there?
Yeah. I think that's something that we should do next, because we even have people coming from the Sunshine Coast every month to attend Bribie Island. So they can't always come every month, but I think it's definitely something we need to research on and do that as well.
That's wonderful, mate. Do you find that staying in the community and staying close, through my father-in-law, I've learned that accountants really are applying law all day long. People think of them as numbers people, but actually they're applying the law on behalf of the ATO as a proxy for the ATO. In fact, I pay him, but I do know he works for the ATO. So you have to be really the level up again, don't you? You're like that secondary check and balance to really know that stuff inside out. In your world, how does someone know, who's the best tax lawyer behind that tax accountant? How do we sort of demonstrate that? I guess your group helps with that, but what are the other ways that someone might work that out?
Yeah, and you're exactly right. So my role is to preempt what other issues that accountants will have and learn and be the expert in that area. So with me, I specialize in SME market. So it's more medium-sized businesses and all the tax issues that arise from that. Also do a lot of commercial work as well. So for accountants, they see me as a resource. So instead of trying to spend a few hours researching this issue, they pick up the phone, give me a call, and usually within 10, 15 minutes, we've already worked out what the answer is.
It's fantastic.
For example, had a client who was an accountant who gave me a call. Her client just sold a optometry business. So it went for about $1.2 million. Everyone's very happy about it, obviously. But then when she looked at the financial records of this new client, she realized that there's a Division 7A of about $900,000. And
what's a Division 7A?
Yeah. So Division 7A is when a owner of the company borrowed or took money out of the company. What the ATO say about that is, well, there's only a few ways you can take money out of a company. You either as a wage, as a dividend, or as a Division 7A loan. And if you don't fit within those three ways, then we're going to penalize you. And the tax on Division 7A is about 70% if you add up.
70?
70.
Wow.
Yeah, so plus penalties and interest. So that would have wiped out all the proceeds from the sale of the business.
Wow.
Yeah, the client's been working really hard towards for years and years.
Oblivious to this.
Yeah, completely oblivious. Wow. Yeah, so we've come up with a strategy to fix that. And I'm confident that we'll be able to resolve it for the client. But that's the sort of example.
Fixing looks like, is that where you, I love that, we can refer to you as the fixer after this, but when you come through to fix that, but how do you fix things that are already a documented record? How do we retell that past and then, I guess, present that to what might have occurred?
Yeah, exactly right. So we can't obviously change things that's already happened. So we have to make sure that we categorize it correctly. And then there's avenues within the legislation that allows us to resolve that or minimize the tax implication of that Division 7A loan, which is what we're doing at the moment.
So if I think of when and how someone with your skill set should be reached out to, this isn't a sales pitch, but just by way of where in the order of business machinations do you slot in? Because I know people who are forming a company every day. I know people who are forming corporate structures every day. One of the problems is what structure should I adopt in my personal business affairs to maximize my tax, within the law, but maximize my tax or minimize my tax payable and my tax deductions maximized. It's often between the law and between the accountant, and there's very few creatures that are both. So you feel like a bit of a unicorn in that way, that you can straddle both sides of that and help make sure that people you're helping, the accountants you help, and or people who might come to you directly, get that best of both worlds. Is that where you'd see yourself sort of sitting best?
Yeah, absolutely. I usually sort of refer to myself as the trust advisor for accountants. So the accountant is actually my client. And you're right, with structures these days, that's changing because of what's happening with the federal budget.
Yeah.
So before, everyone was using a company or a trust.
Can you tell me just a little bit about, we're in marketing, and I'd love to hear how you continue to amplify, to share. You've got your community group where you're speaking with accountants out there at Chermside, but you're also very active on LinkedIn. I'd love you to share with our listeners just some of the things that you find have worked for you, maybe some of your approach to that, and what you're learning in there that you're now applying to try and raise your staff further in your personal and professional branding.
Yeah, so LinkedIn is probably something that I'm still learning. What I find most people are resonating with is talking about issues that are facing them in their business. So the comments that gets a lot of people liking is usually to do with something that's affecting them. So that's something I'm learning as well. As in, what is the best way to explain how I can help as a lawyer and as an advisor in their business.
So it's that demonstrated expertise. The person comes to you with a small challenge, could be a big challenge, but it's a particular challenge. We both went to the same undergrad uni at QUT, and that was all coursework. You wrote learning, you're getting the information. But we both did a master's at UNSW, which is kind of cute. But
we're twins.
Twinning, woo. But the thing about the master's courses is they're much more scenario-based, aren't they? They give you examples, and you have to demonstrate that you can identify the component parts, the relationships between them, pull that apart, and pick a path through it. Do you find that LinkedIn is an environment where that can happen? You can take that example problem, show how you think and break it apart. And I know it's often in a small comment or maybe in your own post, you can expand on that. But is that something you do consciously? You try and sort of expand the problem out and then highlight how you would work your way through it, analogously to how you might help someone else with some other problem. Does that work for you?
Yeah, I think so. And so what I find is working well is treating LinkedIn like a part of a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So starting a conversation with an issue that relates to the people that reads it, and then having following that up with comments that is relevant to the
So you'll kick off the post, and it's your comments coming in to keep it going.
Yeah. So it's often more about what's happening in their lives rather than what's happening in my life that raise the most amount of comments. So, for example, I did a presentation for the IPA in the state conference.
Yeah,
and
I saw that.
Instead of just making a comment about my presentation, I was making a comment about how it was good to talk about these live issues with the group and how much we need support now that things are changing. And I got a lot of comments about how they find that they are feeling more isolated and how important it is to be part of a community.
Yeah.
So I think it's the people side of it that is what's triggering a lot of these posts and making it more relevant in LinkedIn.
And we're humans first, aren't we?
Yeah.
And even in marketing decision making, people buy emotionally, justify logically. Mm-hmm. And so if we can connect with people emotionally, then we know that we've got ourselves a relationship we can kick off. So, well, thank you for that. We're going to pick up a bit more on that shortly because we're going to talk about how the platforms are changing. So thank you for that run through of your kicking off your career and some of the arc you've followed and where we are today. We're going to come back shortly and talk about where the law is changing by way of some of the applications we've seen in the budget and some of the maybe the challenges broadly in the Australian economy and legal landscape. That sounds like a big claim. We're just going to chat about that. But definitely also the impact of AI on law. I think people will be interested in that. And we both spoke pre-show about some of the things that people are trying to do themselves that could be a little bit dangerous. So I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thanks, Dan.
Love to be in it.